Welcome to the Pleasure Principles podcast, Superwomen. If you've followed me for a while, if you've read my book, you've heard a lot about my vagina, my pelvic pain, my surgeries. A lot of you have sent me messages with similar experiences. Painful sex, difficult postpartum issues, which is why you asked. I've listened, and I wanted to bring on a guest today that is an expert in pelvic floor. Hey, Superwoman. What if I told you that the super traits that got you success in your career are the exact reason why you do not have the sex, intimacy, connection that you deeply crave? You've built a life that looks pretty good from the outside. The career, the house, the family, the full calendar, but you're lying beside somebody who doesn't truly see you. You don't feel fully met. Touch feels like pressure. You can't remember the last time you wanted sex or the last time you felt truly wanted, desired, pursued. You've blamed your hormones, your body, yourself, your busy schedule. But what if the real problem isn't you? What if the mismatched libidos, the resentment that's built in your relationship, the way that your skin crawls when your partner reaches out to touch you in a way that you don't really like? What if this isn't a personal failure, but the cost of being the superwoman, the cost of being the one that holds everything together? This is the quiet crisis that no one prepared you for. You're high achieving, you're exhausted, you're emotionally over functioning, and starved for intimacy that feels like home. The Pleasure Path assessment was designed exactly for women like you, who've done the therapy, read the books, taken the supplements, and still feel like something's missing. This is not just another quiz. It's an assessment where you will uncover the super traits blocking your intimacy, your erotic shutdown style, what's actually draining your desire, safety, and arousal. And what's even better is you get to do this live with me for a limited time before it becomes a self-paced experience. This is not just another tool. It is a powerful reset back to your desire, back to your truth, back to your turn on. We will look at the 7 key areas that I see superwomen missing the boat: health and hormones, sexual shame and miseducation, super traits, power dynamics and emotional labor, nervous system patterns, communication and safety, feminine embodiment and receiving. Because that, superwomen, that is what is going to be a game changer for you when you can actually see what's wrong and follow the pleasure path to fix it. Don't wait. Head to the link in the show notes. Secure your spot for a pleasure path assessment with me, and you will get immediate access to my calendar. I can't wait to do this assessment with you because pleasure isn't just about sex. It's about being able to receive love, care, attention, turn on without guilt, without needing to earn it. And I can't wait to show you how. So welcome, Aliya. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am a pelvic floor physiotherapist. I have a clinical practice in Toronto where I live, and I spend the rest of my time when I'm not in the clinic treating pelvic floors. I spend that time talking about pelvic floors, talking about vaginas, talking about our bodies, talking about bladders, bowels, sex, and all the things. I talk about that online to strangers and to literally anyone that will listen. So I'm really excited to talk to you about your vagina.
I love it. And I want to talk about mine, but just this question came to my mind.
Mhm.
And I'm trained in pelvic exams. I'm not practicing clinically at the moment in person. But there was this interesting thing that would happen, and I wanted to know if this was the case for you as well, since your like whole day, whole world is pelvic floor, and for me it was a portion. But anytime I had to do a pelvic exam for a woman, what would she say? She would be apologizing if she hadn't waxed or shaved. Like there was just a million apologies always. Do a pelvic exam for a man, and they're just like, here's my dick. Is this an experience in your clinic? Are women apologizing when you are doing their exams?
They're apologizing all the time. They're apologizing for, yeah, sorry, I didn't have time to shave. Oh, sorry, I didn't, like, I need a pedicure. Sorry, so much sorry. And I'm always
Yes.
like, I'm sorry too. I didn't shave my legs. I don't remember the last time I had a wax. Like, I don't get my toes done. So they're apologizing often about what their body looks like and what they think I think it should look like, or maybe what they think I will be more, not offended by. But I'm not offended by anyone's body. I think everyone's body is honestly so different. Hair, no hair, toes, no toes, whatever. Everyone's body is completely different and they're all just like perfect. But women are also always apologizing to me for, I'm so sorry, I had to bring my baby today. I'm so sorry, I'm crying. I'm just like, it's okay. I'm also crying. I also have to bring my son with me to work sometimes or places when I don't have anyone to take care of him. So I think that's just a part of, I don't know, the problem. But yes, I see that a lot.
And I'm just personally laughing because I have so many American clients and they constantly make fun of me for saying how I say sorry. And here we are, two Canadians just like probably said sorry about 8 or 10 times. And I know
Yeah.
they're cracking up listening to this episode. Okay. Appearance. Let's talk about this. I just want to go over the things that I know listeners have shame around first, and then we'll get into the other stuff. But appearance. I have clients, and maybe you can speak to the little more like technical side of this, that feel like if their vagina looks a certain way. So I think porn has created this standard where like no labia, bleached, like it basically looking like a doll or something, no hair, that there's this standard. So women have no idea about what the range of normal is for vulva anatomy. Can you help us out here?
This is such a good question. I'm so happy that you asked this. No one's ever asked me this before. But honestly, I have seen hundreds of vulvas and
That's what I
vaginas.
mean. That's not like that's the expert here. 'Cause
And like there are no two that are the same at all, right? I have seen ones that are completely like bare, like the porn, right? Completely Brazilian everything off. And then I've seen others that probably, I don't know, I'm not really sure, I don't ask, but haven't seen a razor or a wax in a long time. And literally everything in between. And I think what is normal is literally whatever you want to do with your body. I think pubic hair does have a purpose, right? It does have a purpose, but I think if you prefer not to have pubic hair, it's your body, so you should do what you want. And so, in terms of what is normal or what is out there, everything and anything is out there. I think one thing that we may not know about, like what I just said about hair, right? No hair or all the hair, like everything between, I think we can conceptualize that in our own minds, regardless of what we might want to do with our own bodies. But I think what people may not realize um, is that everyone's sort of vulva. So the vulva is what we see on the outside, right? It's the labia. And we have two sets of labia. We have the labia majora and the labia minora. The labia majora are the lips on the outside. Okay. Those are the ones that if you don't remove hair, those ones will have pubic hair on them. And the labia minora are the lips on the inside the labia majora. And whether you take all the hair out or not, those lips don't have hair on them. It is normal for our labia minora, the inside lips, to be longer than the outside lips, to be showing outside the taco or whatever you want to call it. Like that's normal, or to have like one side longer than the other,
thank you.
or right?
Yeah,
That's
this
normal.
is, I have clients now that have painful sex because they have had surgery for asymmetry.
Yeah.
And this is like meaning one labia longer than the other. And they thought that
Yeah.
that was abnormal.
Yeah, no, that's totally normal. And I think what else is normal that we may not know or may not realize is that like skin colors are very different, right? And I like to kind of compare this to, okay, so like Jordan, you have white skin, I have brown skin. So when you don't have makeup on and your natural skin is going to look very different from what someone who has more melanin, so brown or black skin, our skin would look very different without makeup on in terms of what typically we would see. So typically with whiter skin, we would get maybe you would get more blotchy, maybe more red spots, for example. Whereas with melanated skin, we get darker spots. We have a lot of hyperpigmentation. And so pigment can also be different down in our vulva. So, I there's a lot of women that I see who have darker skin like me, and it's normal for your vulva to be even darker than your outside skin. Though that's
Yeah.
normal.
And when most of our sex education, or most, because most, I work with a lot of heterosexual women, so they don't have the experience looking at other people's vulvas. Some of them they've never even seen another vulva.
Exactly.
So
Like if the only comparison
if
you
the
have
only
is like
frame of
porn.
reference is porn, which is most of them have had surgery, labiaplasty to change the appearance of their labia minora, and there's a lot of like bleaching, right? So everything is one color down there. So women just to feel like just have no idea what a normal vulva looks like.
Right.
So
It's totally normal to have darker skin down there, or maybe if you're white skinned, it's common for the skin to be a little bit more like red. Just like it's okay that the skin is a different color than the skin on your face or your arms or your legs. That's normal. Like ingrown hairs, like razor burn, all of this stuff, like scars. This is all really normal stuff. And we don't see, and you're so right. Like if you are someone that is heterosexual and you've never seen another vulva, you have no concept unless you look online if you haven't already. And so it's really easy, I think, for us to feel like there's something wrong with our body when our body is super normal. Your body is normal.
and we have all of this marketing messaging. Porn is a multi-billion dollar industry per year. I do feel like there are much more images and like art exhibits and things of normal vulvas. It's more easily searchable these days, but thank you for telling. And just also labiaplasty, like again, I want anyone to do what they feel like they need to do. Because if you have so much shame around the way that you look, that's hindering your health and well-being and wellness. But I definitely would recommend getting an idea of what normal is. And I would only recommend labiaplasty or people, my clients consulting with doctors that perform it if there's pain, like if there's an issue. But because I've had a lot of clients that have had surgery and then they regret it after
Mhm.
because of the nerve damage. So that even if they didn't have pain before they did it for cosmetic reasons, they have issues, or like some of their clitoral hood was also cut or removed. And that's an area for more pleasure. Have you experienced this at all in your with
Um,
your patients?
Yeah, I have had some patients that have had surgeries for various reasons. Some post-surgical following sort of incomplete hymens, which were posing kind of functional problems. And yeah, sometimes we heal really well from a surgery, and sometimes we simply don't. Or I love your advice that if that's something you think you need to do for your own well-being, like for sure go down that road. But
Yeah, go
just
for
be,
it.
yeah, but just be aware of, that if you're doing something because you're in this like comparison cycle for what you see online or what you think is normal, I think it's good to always remember like everything you see online is totally fake, right? Like porn is not real.
Edited,
Even like,
filtered.
right? Instagram is also not real. And I know a lot of people, a lot of women who are mothers, they feel a lot like less than because they see everybody else on Instagram like just rocking it with these like, workouts and coordinated sets and the bodies and the this and the that. Like it's all freaking fake, right? I think we just
I
need to
saw
remember.
I saw a post about type B moms the other day, and I was like, I feel seen, like as I'm
Oh, that's
tripping over toys on the floor, watching this reel about type B moms. I was just like, thank you.
That's funny. But yeah, I think like surgery is a big decision. And I think that if you understand your body and if you understand the parts of your body and how it works and you're making a decision for the right reasons and those are personal reasons, I think it's fine, right? That's just your decision. But I think that yeah, we shouldn't be making. I think again, it's really none of my business, but if we're doing it because we're stuck in the comparison trap, that makes me actually a little bit sad inside.
Yeah, and we're comparing to not a biological, anatomical, real human standard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it bothers me, but we're like spending our money and time doing these surgeries when it could be to way better use. But again, my opinion, and everyone needs to make an individual decision. But from consulting an expert or somebody that knows what they're talking about in the field and not the person that you're paying the money to do the surgery to or with either. Okay.
Right. No, like there's so much variability and they're all fine. They're all normal. They're all different. Like everyone's face
Thank
is
you.
different. Like everyone's
Yeah,
vulva is different. I don't know.
I know. And then
It's
you see
fine.
we're doing a lot of face altering to look the same too. So it's
That's so
wild,
true.
right? Like we're doing the same thing to our vulvas as we are to our faces. But okay.
That's true. That's true.
So I was at yoga this morning. Actually, let me back it up one step. I have had chronic pelvic pain for it's just like right, I hold in my pelvic floor, my jaw, it's me. It's what I do. Also, I've had sexual trauma and domestic abuse. So I just feel like it's where I hold stress and tension in my body, like my pelvic floor and my hips and my jaw. And I
Hmm.
was in yoga this morning, and just the way she cued this exercise, it was like cat cow, but I was on my elbows with my head in a triangle. And we were breathing, and I could just feel my pelvic floor relax. And just the way she cued it, it just, I don't know, it felt different. And I get a lot of pain like around my rectum. It used to feel like somebody was stabbing a knife between my vagina and my rectum. No one diagnosed this for like 10 years when I was in high school. I zero help with that. And they told me they thought I was crazy and wanted to give me like antidepressants because there was like zero understanding of pelvic floor dysfunction. And then went to school to be a naturopathic doctor and found out about the pelvic floor and pelvic floor therapist. Went to one and she's like, "Oh, this changed my life."
Yeah.
But a lot. So I've been under a lot of stress lately, a lot of like tons of stress. And I know I hold it in my pelvic floor and I have exercises to help it relax. But can you share with those listening how stress might affect the pelvic floor?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. And thanks for sharing that about your life. And I'm sorry you went through all that stuff.
Thank you.
But but holding stress in our bodies, like stress will manifest in our body. That's just a fact of life, I think, right? And I think it's really common. And, it's really easy for us to understand that when we're stressed, our jaw hurts, we clench our jaw, our dentist is telling us to use a night guard, like all that stuff, right? I think that's easy to understand in our own bodies, easy to talk about with other people, right? Like that's not a shameful thing to talk about, right?
Yeah,
Like
for
you
some
clench.
reason it's okay to talk about our jaws, but
Right. It's okay to,
not our vulvas.
yeah, exactly. It's okay to say, like, I grind my teeth so much that, like, my partner can't sleep and I'm, like, shaving down my molars. That's perfectly fine to say. And for us to understand that, hey, sometimes that's where stress shows up in our body, right? That's a stress response. It's less commonly understood and less kind of okay to talk about that a stress can also manifest in our pelvic floor, right? Our pelvic floor muscles, they're really cool. Like I love the pelvic floor for so many reasons. Like obviously this is the work that I do, I chose it, but I really actually think this part of our body is super cool. So our pelvic floor muscles are like muscles like any other muscle in our body, right? So like with your bicep, yeah, you can tell it to contract and you can relax it. You control the muscle. The same way our pelvic floor muscles are made of the same type of muscles that we can contract and relax. Like we should be able to do that, right? It's obviously harder for some than others, but those muscles have that capacity for us to voluntarily contract and relax them. But what's also super cool about our pelvic floor muscles is that they're also like directly controlled by our brain, by our nervous system. A lot of the functions of the pelvic floor are automatic and reflexive. They're not things that are voluntary. So we can use the muscles voluntarily. You know, you can, if I tell you right now, okay, Jordan, imagine that you had to fart and you really didn't want to because there's somebody in the room and you didn't want to fart in front of them. I would say like, okay, squeeze your butthole, like hold that fart in. You could probably do something like that. And that's you voluntarily activating your pelvic floor muscles, right? But when you go to the bathroom and you go and you sit on the toilet to go pee, ideally what we should be doing is like sitting down and then within a second or so, our bladder will start to empty. It's not often like what's not normal is for us to sit down and to be like, okay, pelvic floor muscles, relax. Okay, bladder, contract and get the pee out. That is actually like an automatic reflexive action that our brain, our nervous system tells our pelvic floor muscles and the things that are kind of related to the act of peeing to work together in that way. So, all that to say, when our nervous system is activated, if we're stressed or if we're anxious or if we're worried about things,
And this is all the women listening.
yeah, like,
Are all,
yeah, yeah, me and you,
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
in the world, 4 billion women
yeah.
across the planet. If our nervous systems are kind of activated and we're in that kind of fight, flight, freeze kind of stressed state, we could have activation of our pelvic floor because our pelvic floor muscles are activated by our nervous system. And the muscles down there, they have sort of a reflexive protective response, a stress response as well. So it's totally common for our pelvic floor muscles to be sort of overactive or turned on, like not in the sexy way, but like, you know, active, contracted.
It's not sexy. I've
Not,
been there. Not
it's
sexy.
definitely not sexy. It is really common for that to be an area where we hold tension or stress shows up, like our pelvic floor muscles, our belly, they all kind of work together, right? Our inner thighs. And sometimes it is a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, but sometimes it's kind of simple. Like we try to protect or, you know, yeah, it's a stress response and then we get stuck in it.
And that was something that I didn't realize until I saw a pelvic floor therapist, that I was just in this holding pattern of like clenching my pelvic floor. And I still, I think, kind of naturally do that now, but I just have more tools and techniques to relax. So, as a part of that, sometimes I would have an orgasm and it was like it would contract worse. And I'd get like, I don't know if it's a muscle spasm, but it would be super painful after orgasm. But
Mm.
can we talk about like painful sex issues and how that relates to pelvic floor?
So if we have muscles of our pelvic floor that are sort of tight or overactive, or we have a harder time kind of letting them go, when it comes to having penetrative sex, right? Something going in to the vagina, let's just say, in order for that to happen comfortably and without pain, and hopefully with some pleasure on the other side of it, the muscles of the pelvic floor have to be sort of like soft and like loose and not contracted because you can't walk in through a door that's closed, right? It's the same concept. You need the door, you need the muscles to be relaxed and open. But when it comes to painful sex, especially on a context of background of painful sex, again, we can get stuck in this cycle of, well, every time I have sex, every time there's penetration that really hurts. It hurt last time, it hurt the time before. It's probably going to hurt this time, right? We have this anticipation or this fear of pain because we've had pain before. And I'm talking in the context here of consensual sex, sex that we want to have with a partner. Well, with that fear or that anticipation of pain based on the history of pain, it kind of gets us into that same kind of protective response, right? Our body often will like brace for it. Sometimes we know that we're like, tightening up and we're holding our breath and we're doing this, just like let it be over. And
And
sometimes we don't even.
a lot of those listening, it's also because there's shame, there's resentment, they're not asking for what they need and they don't know how to communicate. So they're even just clenching, or there's that kind of, I feel like, automatic response just from not feeling safe and trusting too. Even if they don't have pelvic pain, there's still that little like, like I don't really want to be doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And that definitely will play a role, right? So then we get into this cycle again. We're stuck in this like loop of anticipating pain and then bracing and trying to, fend off the pain. And that kind of protective bracing, tightening of the muscles is going to make that penetration that we were so scared about. It's going to make it painful. And then we get stuck in this kind of loop where our brain is like, well, we were right to be scared. That did hurt. And then it reinforces that whole fear. And then we're stuck. The next time it's going to be the same. And the next time it's going to be the same. So with painful sex, it's really important to figure out like the why behind it, right? And whether is it more mental, emotional? Is it physical? Is it like something as simple as lubrication or positions or like allowing our bodies more time to actually be ready for penetration? Like a man can take like a minute and be ready. It
Yeah.
takes us like, physiologically like 20 minutes, right?
Oh, we
To
are
be
not
ready.
broken versions of men. Like,
Right? Like they can
our
think
bodies just work differently.
they work differently. Our sexual arousal response just takes more time, right? There's actual physical changes that happen. The vaginal canal lengthens, like it needs to have blood flow and like time for these changes to happen. Forget lubrication, but like these actual changes need to happen and they're not as quick as a man. So we need to sometimes understanding that about ourselves can be helpful too. So figure out what is contributing to your painful sex and let's try to have sex that isn't painful, right? Like that seems so simple to say, but we can't fix painful sex by just like sucking it up and having more painful sex. Like it's
Yeah.
not going to get better. We need to break that cycle. Yeah.
I I often recommend taking penetration off the menu for a time to
Mhm.
mix it up and just discover each other again and discover other ways of turning each other on and getting each other off. And that is helpful and fun. But people, we're just so stuck on this idea that sex equals penis and vagina and
Yeah.
forget about so many other things.
Yeah, totally. Go figure out what you like by yourself. Actually, leave your partner out of it. Your homework is to explore your body and to have an orgasm by yourself. That is your job. That is your homework. Do it by yourself. That's your goal. And part of that is like, sure, I'm kind of being a bit, silly right now saying like, just do it by yourself, but it's a way to build trust in your own body. And when you have sex with a partner, there is trust within yourself and there's trust within your partner that has to happen in order for that to be a successful experience. And sometimes when we don't trust our body to be able to do something that like everybody has sex, like why am I having pain with sex? Like there's something wrong with me. My body is broken. If that's a way that we feel, an important part to healing that is to build trust again with yourself. So anyhow, that's what I like to recommend.
Yeah, I'm definitely starting with self pleasure, and they are always exploring on their own.
Love
It's
that.
it's homework that I also give because yeah, if we don't know how we like what we like, how can we communicate it to somebody else? And it's constantly we've given our power and agency to our partner. And then we're in a position where if we don't like something, then we feel bad to say we don't. You know what I mean? Yeah. Self exploration, self pleasure, I'm all for it. Aliya, what are some signs that you might be holding stress in your pelvic floor?
This is a really good question because I think sometimes we don't even know what our body's telling us, right? And for some of us, we don't even know that we're stressed, right? Like
Oh yeah,
we,
a lot of times my clients, they're so in their head, they're so thinking, they're doing, they're not in their bodies at all. So tell us
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
good info.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of the times when we are sort of holding stress or it's manifesting in our pelvic floor, there's overactivity of our pelvic floor muscles. So, like to put it in another way, the muscles might be tight, okay, of the pelvic floor. And that could show up looking like more urges to go to the bathroom. So, more frequent urges to pee, sudden urges to pee, maybe even uncontrollable urges, right? When you go to the bathroom, it might even be hard. Even if you had an urge to go, it might be hard for that stream to start. It might be slow for the stream to start, or it might be like trickling out, right? So, these kind of changes in our bladder urgency and frequency pregnancy. We might feel like our digestion is all over the place, right? We might get constipated. We might have a hard time having one of those good poops where you feel like you got all the poop out kind of thing. You might start to have pelvic pain, and that might be pain like you described that you were experiencing in your own body where you felt like someone was like stabbing you in the pelvic floor. But it can also show up as like heaviness or pressure in the pelvis, right? It
Yeah, it
can show
doesn't
up
have
as
to be that extreme. I'm a
no,
lot, so mine is extreme.
it can be, but it
But
can also
now, yeah,
be.
now it is more like pressure, heaviness, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it can feel like, when you get like when you worked out a muscle, right? Like, and your muscle feels tight or sore after you did like a bunch of squats, for example, like we can get those types of sensations in our pelvic floor as well. And they can feel hard to put your finger on or to know what you did. But, pressure, heaviness, tightness, you can feel tension in the pelvic floor. That could be it. Pain with sex, feeling like it's hard to put something inside. Tampon, finger, penis, menstrual cup, like those kinds of things. If that when you're doing good and feeling good and happy and peaceful, if those things don't hurt, but you notice that these things start to show up when you're under stress, that's probably a sign. And even things like low back pain, hip pain, pain in like around the bones of your pelvis too, or even like lower belly kind of pain, tightness, that kind of stuff, that those are all really common symptoms and signs that you might be holding tension in your pelvic floor. Yeah, so I would keep an eye out for those.
Thank you. Good to know. And it's our sign to take a deep breath and tune into how your body is feeling right now as you're listening.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So when should somebody see a pelvic floor physiotherapist?
Honestly, I think that it is a good practice for every woman to check in with a pelvic floor physio at some point in their life. I think you don't necessarily have to wait until something goes wrong or something doesn't feel right. But definitely, if you're having issues with bladder control, frequency, urgency, that's like disrupting your life, if you're having leaks, these are not things that you have to live with if unless they don't bug you. Things like hemorrhoids or constipation or difficulty having bowel movements. Pregnancy or postpartum are good times to check in with someone like me. Perimenopause and menopause. Anytime you're having painful sex and you don't want it to be painful. Pelvic pain or back pain that hasn't been sort of addressed by more traditional physio or chiro or that kind of massage work. If that is not fixing it, let's look inside the pelvic floor too to see what contribution it has. Like pelvic floor dysfunction looks like many things and it's very, very common. Most of us are going to have some kind of pelvic floor dysfunction show up in our lifetimes. So yeah, that's what I would say. Those are the big ones.
I I think normalizing that we have so many stages and things that change throughout our lifetime, especially as women, right? Pregnancy, menopause that you mentioned, and it's okay to seek to seek help or go and we take our car in for checkups right before it's broken down on the side of the road. So not necessarily waiting until there's a problem, I think is a big thing. I definitely recommend that all of my patients and clients go like when they're pregnant, postpartum, menopause, and yeah, obviously if there's issues. So, oh, and you did mention this last question from me. You mentioned leaks,
Hmm.
bladder leaking. So we see all these commercials, and I've seen them since I was a kid of like, okay, so you get old and then you need diapers. But can you speak to that? Because I hate that. I hate that women think that they just accept leaking.
I hate that too. It's a good question. I think it's like one of the top reasons that people come to see me. I would say, like, outside of pregnancy and postpartum, my next kind of two big categories of patients, I guess, would be patients that have leaking problems and those with painful sex. So this is a huge problem, like so huge that yes, we were watching commercials on TV about it from a young age. What really gets to me is like on Instagram and TikTok where there's all those like kind of funny reels that come out where like the moms are peeing and they're like blaming it on their children. That's just a normal thing now. That kind of really bothers me more so
Yeah, because it
because
normalizes the dysfunction.
It normalizes the dysfunction. And listen, it is super common. I don't remember the stat off the top of my head. There's studies that quote all kinds of stats about like how common it is to have incontinence or leaking after having a baby. But the reality is that if you are leaking at any time in life, and leaking includes one drop of pee, right? So if pee is escaping when you don't want it to escape, that is a sign of dysfunction. And if it doesn't bother you, that's fine. That's not my problem. It's not my, you know, it's not my place to say whether or not that should bother you. But if it's bothersome, especially if it's kind of limiting the activities that you choose to do, right? Like limiting the things you're doing with your kids or with your friends or the activity or the exercises that you choose to do or the stuff that brings you joy. If it's limiting that, this is a huge problem. And I think the knock-off effect of leaking actually is more scary, right? It takes us out of activities, it takes us out of movement and exercise. We stop running, we stop jumping, we stop lifting, and then we see all of this decline as we age. And that's the more scary part for me. The reality is that pelvic floor physiotherapy and exercises, the right types of exercises, that's like the gold standard. That is the top line of defense against leaking. So it is not just something you have to live with. It sometimes is because our muscles are very weak. And as we get older, all of the muscles in our body are going to get weaker. That is just a function of aging. So, yes, the muscles that help to keep your bladder in control will also lose strength as a function of aging if we don't do anything about that. But if we're able to figure out that we're leaking because we have a weakness problem, we can address that by strengthening, for example. If we figure out that we're leaking because our muscles are too active and they're not functional because they can't turn on and off at the right time, we can address that. If there's a timing or coordination or a higher level problem, you're only leaking when you're running more than 8 kilometers, we figure out why it is that at that distance your muscles are like out of steam. Perhaps it's a posture thing. A lot of the times it's just making sure that your whole body is working together and managing pressure better. So it really doesn't have to be normal. It is normalized, but it doesn't have to be that way. And it's the options I don't think are so clear where it's like diapers or surgery. Like there's
Yeah,
so
or
much
just like
in.
laughing at it.
Right. So there's so much in between. So I would definitely say that it's never too late, right? Some people come in to see me and they're in their 60s and they say, I've been leaking ever since I had kids and I had my last kid in my 30s. Is it too late? I'm like, no, it's not too late. It's never too late. So if someone's listening and they're like, well, it's been like this for 5 years, well, you have like the rest of your life to live. So you don't have to live with this unless you're okay with it.
Thank you for giving everyone permission to take care of themselves because we do need to hear it. Okay, well, Aliya, thank you so much for sharing your vulva wisdom, your pelvic floor wisdom with us all. Where can everyone find you?
Awesome. Thanks for having me and asking me all those great questions, especially the first question about like what people look like. I like that. People can find me online. I like to hang out on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Box Wellness Co. That's where I like to share like education like this and exercises and information, all things pelvic health. And then I also have a podcast called the Not Your Mother's Pelvic Floor podcast. And I do a lot of educational episodes there and also bring on guests to talk about how they were raised and the types of conversations they had about taboo things growing up as children, like sex and periods, and then how they're navigating those things as adults. So there's lots of great content out there on my podcast if you want more of this. And then my website is boxwellness.co. And from there, you can find any of my online programs and get a link to my booking site if you are looking for someone like me in Toronto.
Thank you so much. We will link all of that in the show notes.
Thank you.